Welcome to Booming Your Bottom Line, a weekly podcast on how to find, serve, and keep local boomer consumers as your customers. If you are a small business owner, then this podcast is for you. Hosted by Mark Hager, CEO of Age in Place Networks, publisher of AgeInPlace.com, and expert consultant in the boomer consumer industry. And Aaron Murphy, architect, certified Aging in Place specialist, national speaker, and published author on Aging in Place. These two small business owners are going to help you learn what you need to know and step-by-step what you need to do to grow your company through serving the rapidly growing older consumer niche. Now, get ready to supercharge your business.
To kick off our new podcast, Aaron and I thought it would be a good idea to give you a little bit of history about both of us. Thankfully for me, Aaron is going to be going first. So let's talk about Aaron. Aaron is an architect, business owner, entrepreneur, author, philanthropist, and certified Aging in Place specialist. He is the founder of ADM Architecture with over 18 years experience in commercial and residential design. He spends a lot of his architecture skills creating spaces for people with all abilities, the universal design. Aaron is also the founder of Empowering the Mature Mind, a resource for both consumers and professionals to learn more about leveraging universal design for living spaces, and he even teaches business owners how to create better service and increase profit in the aging consumer niche. He is the author of Aging in Place, 5 Steps to Designing a Successful Living Environment for Your Second Half of Life, which is a practical look at how home remodeling can help baby boomers and older consumers stay independent and in their own home for as long as is safely possible. Aaron has had some very impressive speaking engagements at a local, state, and national level, including many presentations for local organizations in the Seattle area. He was the 50-plus Forum keynote speaker for the state NAHB conference and a presenter at the 2013 Aging in America conference. He is also the co-host of Encore Living radio show. And now that I'm all done with that, hey Aaron.
Hi Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm very excited to get this podcast kicked off with you, and I think that we're going to have a lot of information that business owners are going to be able to benefit from. And Speaking of that, for the business owners that may not know a lot about the aging baby boomers, why don't you give us a minute overview of why they should be paying attention?
Okay. So, the quick background, and thank you for mentioning the book and all the speaking stuff, and it's hard to listen to, but it's flattery. I'm flattered. Okay, let's move on. 10,000 people a day started turning 65 years old in January of 2011. And we have another 16, 17 years left of that, and those are the baby boomers. And as a demographic, both in size and in attitude and in financial competence, they're really driving the boat, driving the bus as far as what our economy is going to look like and how we're going to spend money here in the next 2 decades for sure. Boomers have 5 times the net worth of the U.S. average. And they have a lot to do with consumer packaged goods and everything from home care services to cars to they're in charge. They've changed every decade they've gone through since Woodstock, right? I mean, every 10 years they're doing something new and different. And just by their sheer mass, they are changing the way everyone has to look at it. And so you have to change the way you look at your business for the next 2 decades based on who your buyers are, and you need to know them, and they're complicated and they're savvy, and so that's why we're doing what we're doing.
So speaking of that, how do you think that's going to affect the average business owner?
They could get left behind, right? Some people are terming this the silver tsunami, so I'm going to argue, getting educated is like paddling faster.
Right.
You can catch this wave. But if you don't choose to educate yourself about the environment of your store or the way you do your marketing or the way your staff communicates, with this demographic, you're probably going to drown. You're going to miss that wave. You're going to miss this opportunity. And so that's why you and I decided we should probably collaborate from both sides of the country, you in Tennessee and me in Seattle, and have this discussion for people, because I've been speaking long enough that I get lots of questions from business owners. So the need was there to educate the public and help small business, which you and I both believe is the backbone of the United States, to prepare for this.
So what do you think that some of the things that are different about aging consumers versus the younger ones that business owners need to know about?
Well, I think, maybe I can think of 100 things, but, for the sake of our introduction today, we'll go into lots of this in future podcasts. But as an architect, I'll speak to the environment. Let's talk about the brick and mortar store for a minute. Can somebody with a mobility device, using a walker or wheelchair, can they reach all your product? Are the aisles wide enough? And if not, is your staff aware of what's coming in the next 2 decades, and that's who might be coming in their store, and they need to know how to help them, or they need to know how to talk to them and be patient with them. And there's so many pieces to the puzzle, and that's why we're here, to be honest, is that we have a lot of that to talk about.
Agreed. So now you've talked with a lot of business owners, and I know that with all the business owners that I've talked to, there are some reoccurring themes that I've found. What are some of the needs that you've been told by business owners, or what do you see as some of the greatest needs for business owners in dealing with this oncoming wave of older consumers?
Yeah, I think it's the complexity of the buyer. I think it's understanding them and how they make decisions. I also think that it's how do we reach and connect with them?
Right.
They're different than Gen X, Gen Y, every other age group, and yet they're the biggest and they have the most money. So to be aware of how do you do that, and that it's, we did a national webinar last year through empoweringthematuremind.com, and we talked a lot about this, time and trust and rapport. They'll spend money and they want to make sure they get value, but it's about relationship too. I make reference in that particular webinar about we're back to June and Ward Cleaver in the sense.
Oh yeah.
Right, except now what I ask my neighbor for, or the person next to me at church, is a website, right? It's instead of who's the plumber, in a physical sense that can come to your door. It might be, where's a safe place to get this? There are a lot of companies across the nation that are vetting service providers and creating that one-stop shop list of resources. But to get back to your question, the point is, you have to understand your consumer, and they are not the same as every other demographics.
Right. Absolutely. So, as a coach, an educator with small business owners, what do you find yourself working with them on and or teaching them?
Yeah, many times I think one of the start points and the touch points is to teach social media. How to make a steady stream of brand impressions where you are not selling, you are educating, and you are sharing information that brings value to your customer so that they already trust you or have the initial relationship out of the way, right? If a major sale or a purchase, or if that's 5 to 7 touches, you can get a couple of those initial touches out of the way through social media. And it's not every post is about you. It's you're sharing information about the industry. You're sharing other people's good information.
Right.
A lot of calculated things you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And you have to have a plan, or you'll flounder.
Well, actually, let me stop you there for a second and comment about social media. There are a lot of people, and there are a lot of business owners that I've talked to that they don't believe that the boomer demographic, that social media is relevant to them. And I find myself lots of times teaching them that it is. And I mean, there are plenty of statistics to back that up, but I just wanted to get your take on that.
Same as yours. And in fact, you've been doing this in the cyberspace world longer than I have, about twice as long as I have. And it's just about educating them. And that's why we're here. That's why this is the introductory piece, is to say, who are we, and why are we credible to run this webinar podcast thing and share for small businesses. And you and I both share that. And we'll get into the data and the stats and the why, and we can prove all that with PowerPoint slides, whatever, right? I mean, public speaking, all the stuff I do as a coach and an author, it's all valid. We'll get to that. But I'm getting the same feeling and feedback. And I guess my response to that is, how many iPads or Kindle Fires or whatever are at your parents' house?
Exactly.
Right now, one of them, only my kids, the grandkids, play on it. And yeah, it's in the drawer next to the phone. But mom shops online from a pad. She's out there. Oh, yeah. I know children have switched to things like Instagram and even a new one I've never seen called Snapchat, and that's about them staying away from the places their parents are.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll always kind of stay in front and find the new thing, and we're trying to chase them from an oversight perspective. But Facebook and Pinterest, and I mean, there's moms, and actually, let's back up for a second. I'm not necessarily even going to say it's boomer 65 plus. When most housing decisions and medical care decisions are made by the female head of household, and for your mother and how we're going to care for her or allow her to age in place and what we need to buy or what contractor, what designer. Now I'm only talking about the 40 plus female.
That's right.
Right. I pulled that line way down.
Yep.
To say, hey, sometimes it's the daughter. I'm an only, so in my case, even the son is going to be making purchasing decisions on their behalf, maybe with their money. Okay, so yeah, it's bigger than just the boomer consumer.
Exactly. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in upcoming episodes, because I have got a ton of data and a lot of things I want to talk about in terms of, caregivers and even long distance caregivers, and not to sound offensive by using the term caregiver, but as people grow older and their adult children get more involved and checking on them and making sure they're okay, and get more concerned about their health, especially when you get up into the late 70s, it becomes a very big deal, and it can be a very profitable sub niche for a small business.
Absolutely.
Very profitable.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
With regard to, and reminder to folks, since this is our first one, our next podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Mark as well. We end up together. We will be co-hosting the show.
Right.
We both have this background, both in the tech world and in the brick and mortar, and I'm a small business owner. One more thing, just on the credibility sense, why should you tune in? Why believe us? Why care? Why share what we're doing with other small business owners? You mentioned the product things, right? And that taking care of mom, or that you might be doing caretaking from afar. I was actually the only architect in the world asked to go to Tokyo.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Thanks to a connection that you and I had, right? Through social media, and you put me in touch with the right person because they asked you who first.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Tokyo for 5 days, and I was the only architect asked to go there specifically to look at aging in place technology, because Japan is the oldest nation, or one of the top 3 per capita in the world. So they are 10 to 15 years ahead of us. Man, you should have seen some of the cool stuff about, and we have a few of them, but they're way ahead.
Right.
The bucket seat in the minivan that actually turns out and on an arm and it puts you in the wheelchair, and everything from that end on vehicles and the Hondas and the Toyotas to showers and, of course, grab bars and wheelchairs and all this stuff. But anyway, the point is by the time you can say, hey, I wrote a book, hey, I spoke in Chicago at a national conference, and hey, I'm the only one in the world that was invited and accepted to go to Tokyo, I don't do that to toot my own horn. This is a servant leadership effort in my part. I believe in it. My grandmother went through it. Their house didn't work. We'll talk about our own backgrounds as we get into this, but I just want to point out, we're not the only game in town. We'd like to share and affect and help as many people as possible. And the only way to do that is to point out the credibility piece, because I'm sure there's someone out there doing the same thing that, I don't know, maybe just is only the small business owner or whatever. But right. The next one will be me interviewing Mark, and Mark's going to have a lot of the background on, the kind of the tech side and the website and the cyberspace side of things. He's had his website, ageinplace.com, for much longer than I've had either of mine. So we'll get into that with him the next go round, but just wanted to say that out loud.
All right. So if you could give business owners one piece of advice, what would it be?
Paddle faster. The clock's ticking. Okay.
Right.
Boomers are here. They are reaching 65. You're 3 years behind. I started doing what I'm doing, and it's translated into architecture work on the residential side of my practice because of the efforts I started 4 years ago.
Right.
I started public speaking. I started a book. It takes a while to get this big steel ball rolling, but once you do, can't stop it. Right on, but those first couple rotations are tough. And so that's why we want to get you on kind of a plan and a program and a sequence of events. The very first thing you asked, and we're going to do this in every single show, actionable items for you. What can you do today? What are 3 things we can suggest you start by the end of the week? Okay, that's the kind of message we want to get out to the small business owner. They need actionable items, right? They
Absolutely.
need a to-do list. They're done talking theory. They want to talk practice.
Exactly.
So, that said, what's the one thing that they can do? Let's start with, go buy a book, okay? Go buy, I read and I've interviewed on my own radio show. David Weigelt and Jonathan Bohm wrote .boom. Okay, here's a copy of .boom. Great starter book on trying to understand marketing to boomers, okay? So any of that stuff, obviously, on Amazon. There's, there are gurus that have been in the space talking in theories for 20 or 30 years already. Get a couple of those books, right? Get The Mature Mind, The Positive Power of the Aging Brain. Get Serving the Ageless Market, Strategies for Selling to the 50 Plus. There are a lot of places to start getting educated, but then what we're going to do is bring the stats and the data and the education part. We're going to talk to you about how to put it into practice so that, like I've done, a third to 50% of my residential architecture practice now is because in 5 different counties, Mark, I've had a general contractor hear their client, who I've never met, say aging in place. The contractor pauses and says, "Oh, if that's what you meant, Aaron Murphy should be your designer." That's branding. That's consistency and persistency. And we want to teach you how to capture this niche.
All right. Now, you spoke at the Aging in America conference. What was your biggest takeaway from that? You mentioned caregiving, and especially caregiving from afar. I was blown away by the amount of tech startup stuff that's going on. There are many people looking for that sweet spot between mom and dad don't want a camera in every room and don't want Big Brother watching us, and they get all panicked about that stuff.
Let me give you one example. My Lively.
Oh, yes.
Right. So instead of cameras, they've taken a different approach to find that sweet spot and what's comfortable for us to track from afar, i.e. notifications on my smartphone, versus what are mom and dad going to go, screw that. That's for old people. We're not old. We don't need that. Right. There's a fine line there.
Right.
And that, in fact, a whole nother discussion topic is communication style, and how to start conversations with your folks. Again, that's why we're doing a series of these. There'll be plenty. My Lively has 3 key fobs. Okay, it's a monthly subscription concept. One's on the pillbox, one's on the refrigerator, and one's on the the door where they go out to the car. Okay, and all it's doing is detecting motion, and that yes, Dad went to the fridge around 8:45 like he does every day. Yes, he went and played poker with his buddies at 2:30 in the afternoon. I assume because he went and got in his car.
Right.
And yes, took his medication. Right. And there are many variations to this. Let me give you one more. And I know we try to keep these short. It's a little hard on the first one because we're trying to introduce each other. One more example. We only know Oki in the United States for printing.
Yep.
Oki in Japan took me to their showroom, and they have this little thing, looks like the camera, up on top at a grocery store, a little black ball.
Mm-hmm.
In the ceiling, 15 feet away from where I'm sitting, but it's not a camera. It's an air motion thing sensor. Okay. And there's this little opalescent heart-shaped thing sitting on the nightstand. Okay. And when I'm moving around in my chair and talking to the people there, the thing's green on the nightstand. If I stopped moving and I sat real still, it turned blue. If I held my breath, it turned red.
Wow.
And that would, the blue and the red, is probably paging your smartphone and the doctor or 911, right? So technology was my takeaway. And it's fascinating. And, as an architect, I say all the time, hey, I'm not the one installing the grab bar, but if your contractor says that that's all aging in place is a grab bar in the shower, BS.
Yeah, you need a new contractor.
Right. A new contractor, right?
Yeah.
It's lighting, it's colors, it's, hey, ask your contractor, did you know that glare's 200 times more debilitating to a 90-year-old than a 20-year-old? Did you know white vertical surfaces cause vertigo for Alzheimer's patients? Right, you didn't. I need you, but you need me too.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that actually, talking about that technology, that actually brings up a point that we'll talk about in another podcast, and that is, as a small business owner, sometimes it makes sense to bring on other avenues of services that you can provide your customers. Yep. And now, if you're an in-home care provider, maybe a natural service might be some type of transportation. If you're the same in-home care provider, maybe you beef up your staff and start doing medical in-home care. But if you're someone who helps do monthly bills and stuff for an older person, maybe you too could do the transportation, or maybe you could start looking into some of these devices, monitoring or home automation or whatever. I mean, I've talked to a ton of home automation installers who never ever thought about this being a niche, and it's a perfect niche for them. They don't consider themselves a senior service business, but yet they can start doing something in a certain way. The thing that they're already doing, they're just doing it a little bit differently, putting a little bit different products in. Yep. And now they've got a brand new arm. So we're going to talk about that more later.
Oh, yeah. There's so many. I mean, there are people picking up dog poop for seniors, okay? Like, there's so many opportunities out there, whether it's expanding your business or maybe, like you said, maybe you're the bookkeeper for your mom and one of her friends. Did you ever consider there's, 78 million of those people?
Exactly.
Just something to think about. And so it's how to expand your business, how to grow your business. That's why we're here. So.
Okay. So is there anything else that you would like to impart to everybody before we wrap up today?
For me, I think it's just the idea. And again, as a small business owner who started a one-man architecture firm in the middle of the recession in 2009, and finally in the last year, I'm looking at hiring and growing, and I can't keep up with the workload. Part of that, and this is what we'll teach you in the webinars and all the stuff that we're going to start providing at ageandplace.com for small business, it's all a part of laying out a plan and sticking to the plan. It's just like going to the gym, right? I've done professional coaching for small businesses, but it's like being your weight trainer, okay? Or you're, the guy that teaches guitar lessons. I've taken lesson 1 10 times because I didn't practice.
I know.
Right? Same thing, right? You want to do the same lesson over and over again and pay me for it? Fine. But the only way to really progress is to work the plan and to begin with the end in mind. And we'll teach you all that along the way. So that's why we're here and we're excited.
Yes. And I know I told you before, but I'm very excited to be working with you. And I am, it's hard to start out doing these podcasts. Aaron and I have both spent a lot of time talking about where we want to go with small business, and it's the potential that we see for small business owners, the need that we see for small business and communities across the United States, and I mean really across the globe, but the need is going to be so great. I mean, we're pretty much just past the middle of the curve, and of the boomers growing older, and things are going to start getting painful for a lot of people in a very short time. And we really both believe that small business owners are going to be that lifeline for people, whether they are doing the in-home care, or they're working on people's houses, or they're providing transportation, or they're just stopping by and sitting with them for a while. Every small business, it is going to have to make some accommodations, because we're talking about, 6 to 8% more of the population is going to be over 65. So that's a lot. That's millions and millions of people.
And it's happening fast. And so, again, it's, hey, tune in, join us, subscribe to the podcast, and we're going to start educating you because we're going to teach you how to paddle faster and catch this wave. And it's not about taking advantage of anybody. It's not about it is about being lucrative to the small business, but it has to be. We'll get into this. Your consumer won't trust you anyway if you're not listening to this concept, but it has to be about, slow and steady wins the race, and it's, working through the multiple points of touch with them and how they listen and how they make decisions. You have to take on the mentality of servant leadership, right? We're here to take care of you and provide you a value. They will spend their money. They need to hear that first.
Exactly. So why don't you tell people how they can get contact with you?
Yeah, sure. So a couple websites for me. I will be joining Mark. This is a joint venture for us, but as of right here today, I have 2 websites for architecture work. And by the way, thanks to things like Skype and screen sharing and video cameras on phones, I can do home assessments anywhere in the world at this point, thanks to technology. As long as you're a little bit tech savvy, you can walk me through mom's house with a tape measure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? Isn't that cool? I'm so excited about that. We'll be rolling that out. But, okay, one is adm-architecture.com. That's our firm, our brick and mortar architecture firm practice. And then all the blogging and the public speaking and my book and, any of that information around aging in place and empowering housing and what needs to change in housing in the next 2 or 3 decades, I hold that over at empoweringthematuremind.com. And you know what? I'm pretty approachable. My cell phone number is 360-440-8255. 8475. Leave me a message. Make sure you leave me an email. I'll get back to you.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, Aaron. And I think that wraps us up for our first episode.
Awesome.
Stay tuned for the next one where Aaron is going to get to turn the tables on me.
That's right. We're going to make Mark relax and laugh and have a good time. He's going to be a pro at this in no time.
All right. Well, thanks, Aaron.
Thanks so much for listening to Booming Your Bottom Line with Mark Hager and Aaron Murphy. To learn more about starting, building, and growing a local business that profits in the older consumer niche, just visit the website at ageandplace.com/smallbusiness. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us at smallbusiness@ageandplace.com. Fill out the contact form on the website or give us a ring at 865-236-1247. Booming Your Bottom Line is a joint venture of ageandplace.com and empowering the mature mind.